First things first, I'm the illest. That is my rendition of Fancy by Charlie XCX and Iggy Azalea, and it's gonna be called Unfancy because I do not feel fancy today. Today we have a Hoya. Shockingly, we have a Hoya. We will talk about Hoyas, and I did not make this type of videos in a long time. And I did talk about Hoya medinillifolia before in one of my videos, which I will link somewhere above, and that video was about essentially how to research a Hoya. And because I love this plant so much, I used her as an example, so you can see in that video where she grows, etc. I will repeat it today, but I don't think I will go so much into the details of its native habitat. You will excuse me, there is like a wire sticking out. This is for taking photos because the vine, it doesn't go in the right direction. So anyways, maybe I can just put the butterfly, or actually the dragonfly here. Looks so pretty. Gosh. Did I tell you that I'm sick? So today we will talk about Hoya medinillifolia. You know the issue with this setup? These Hoyas here are in my way, so I cannot show you the entire plant. There you go. My Hoya medinillifolia finally flowered, and I thought it would be a good time for me to show her in a video. I will tell you, it was a journey. It was a difficult journey to get her to bloom, and clearly it was difficult for me also to remove the dust from her foliage, but you will pretend that you do not see that. Hoya medinillifolia comes from Borneo, she comes from Sarawak, and she comes from lowland forests. Now this is an epiphytic shrub. And this plant, it's kind of similar to Hoya multiflora in the way that it grows. It's, to me, very different in the way that it flowers, obviously, and in the way that the leaves look like. And maybe it is similar to Hoya platycalis, which I also have in bloom. Let me just get her. I recently got Hoya platycalis, and you can kind of see here, she is about to be done with me. With the flowers. I recently rooted this and she already bloomed, but that's not the point of the video. It was discovered on 2 localities in Sarawak, and it is not really known. I think maybe now it is known because the information that I have is back from 2011, so maybe in 12 years they found out more about it, but at the time of the publication they actually did not know if this is critically endangered or not. Sarawak is going through a lot of deforestation. Borneo is going through a lot of deforestation, just like Papua New Guinea. And we don't actually know how many are there in the wild. But this is not a very common plant, I would say. It was actually first collected in 1984, if I'm not mistaken. And it was analyzed based on the herbarium type sheet. And it was published in 2011 by Michele Roda and Natalie Simonson. And I think they described the plant from the herbarium specimen, which was rehydrated. So I don't believe that the plant was seen again at that time. I might be mistaken here, but you know, if someone watches who is Natalie or Michele, hopefully they don't watch this. You can correct me if that plant was rediscovered in 2011. I do believe, but this is my just memory, maybe making stuff up, I do believe that it was introduced in cultivation around 2015 or 16. In any case, this plant is not so easy to find. It was featured in Summer Rain Oaks' video, as I said many times, when she visited Toril. And this is the plant that Toril was trying to recover in moss. It arrived with all the leaves essentially next to the vine. And this plant, my plant, comes from Sweden as well. It comes from Camilla Gedin. And she actually doesn't have her plant anymore. A lot of people actually say this is a very difficult plant to grow. I have not experienced that. However, I will tell you that I also, I had the advantage of looking at everyone else's experience, so I did not have to go through the same mistakes. So, hashtag blessed, right? Anyways, we will get to the cultivation part, but I can tell you when it comes to shipping this plant, Camilla sent it on a Monday and it was already here on Tuesday, and already the leaves dried out a little bit in the box. So I don't think this is the best shipper. I think if you buy this plant rooted, you are probably going to have more luck, but I just think overseas shipping is probably going to be very, very challenging for this plant. Not impossible. I think if the stem is preserved and potentially if roots are okay, it can regrow. But this is not really the plant where you want her to go through all of that. She can be quite a diva. This is, again, what my plant looks like. I think she looks pretty good. Again, you will have to excuse me for the filthy foliage. This is the biggest vine, and then she grew a second one, and you can see from behind what that looks like. You can see we have a lot of peduncles, and we will get into that. This plant is an epiphytic shrub, and it branches out at the base. As you can see, it did not branch out anywhere towards the top. I don't really know if she would branch out if I were to cut her. I noticed that this vine kind of stopped growing, or this branch, maybe vine is not the right name to call it. So this branch stopped growing, and then it pushed out this other one, and it seems to me that even the other one stopped growing now, and now it's pushing out. I can see a third branch here. So I'm not really sure what that tells us in terms of propagation. I don't think I would love to cut it if that's the case, if it's just going to stop growing. Maybe it will branch out here, but from what I heard, she's not really a great brancher. She really wants to branch out at the base. That is a bit of a problem because she takes up space. You can see that's quite space that she occupies. From here to here, she's over a meter wide. And according to publication, individual branches can get up to 1.5 meters long. And I think this is probably not close to that. Maybe this is 80 centimeters or something like that. 30? Okay, it's more of like 60. So it can get 3 times longer than this. Please don't. I think this is probably the largest that I would like her to get in one direction, because they did break up one direction. I'm so ill, I'm so sick. I would like to see her get bushier, maybe like fill out in this direction, because that's the space that she anyways occupies. But it seems to me that this branch here that's growing is gonna go over here, so thank you very much for that. It's not a great space-saving plant, but it is a beautiful plant. The leaves are very nice. They are very thin, and to me the texture is much different than Hoya loci, than Hoya multiflora. Those have slightly thicker leaves. They're also very thin-leaved Hoyas, but it reminds me a bit when it comes to thickness of the Pachira, whatever you want to call that, the money tree. That's kind of what it reminds me of. It does not produce any aerial roots. There are some nubs on my plant, which I do believe would be great places to root this plant, but they're not actually aerial roots. Now, when it comes to cultivation, so I rooted this plant myself. It arrived in May of 2022, and now it is December of 2023, year and a half almost, I would say, or I can't do quickly math from May to December, so you will have to do that, but it has been a steady grower. It has been slow at times, but I think this is not terrible for a year and a half of growth. I think it arrived as 2-leaf, 1-node cutting, and unfortunately those original leaves did fall off, so we don't have those anymore. And we did lose a couple of leaves, but not too many, especially this vine, this branch lost some leaves. And I do believe this is due to underwatering it sometimes, and potentially because it was too hot. It is said for Hoya medinillifolia that she doesn't like to get way too hot. My plant, I don't think she ever experienced temperatures above 25 degrees. In winter here, I try to keep this room minimally heated because it just gets very hot with all the plants and lights, etc. So I keep it around 21, 22. In the windows, I think it's around 18. In summer, I do use AC because, again, many plants, it would just be way too hot. And in summer, I try to keep it around 28 degrees of Celsius, 27 sometimes when it's very hot outside. But I don't think that my tents get much above 25, maybe a degree or so, but not too much above 25. I don't actually have experience of growing this plant in anything that's hotter than that. I've never tried it in 30 degrees or something like that. Probably she would be okay-ish. So I don't think this is a best plant to grow if you live somewhere where it's very, very hot and there's no AC. I rooted my cutting in pumice, in pure pumice, and in pumice she stayed. So that is my mix. It is just large pumice. You can see here. And I read this in a Facebook group. It was a comment left by Nathalie, so the botanist who discovered this plant or who published this plant. It seems that this plant has very sensitive roots. I never really had issues with root rot with her, so I actually don't know how easy it is to rot her. My plant is in a self-watering pot. I did trim the roots the other day because some of the tips were a bit rotten, but I think that's because of the reservoir and, you know, she got too dry. But most of the roots seem fine to me. I don't think that she would like to be repotted frequently, so, you know, I would just choose the pot carefully. I rooted it in 8 centimeter pot, and when it was rooted, I actually did let it grow a bit too much in that pot. And I think this is 15 centimeter pot, but you can see that it is quite shallow, so I don't think this is actually a too big of a pot, considering the size of the plant. I don't intend to move her from this pot. We will just trim the roots that reach the bottom, and that's that. Try not to repot her too many times. It seems that if you want to grow her in organic mix, you should choose something that is like a very coarse mix, maybe just bark. But it will be a bit difficult to hydrate that. Even if I was just growing this in pumice without self-watering, I think it would be difficult. Actually, I don't think, I know it would be difficult because it was an 8 centimeter pot without self-watering and it needed a lot of water. Actually, one of the reasons why we don't have so many flowers now is lack of water. But to get back to rooting, it takes a long time to root. It took over a month to root this plant. I did it in a prop box. I don't know if she would root faster in moss potentially, but I just don't think that's a great idea to root something that's so sensitive and then right after it roots, transplant it to a different mix. I think we should do less of that, and I'm like guilty. I'm the first one who is guilty of some of the plants, you know, transplanting them too much, but it is really my conclusion that they don't love to be touched so much. That sounded problematic, didn't it? I grow it in my Mars Hydro grow tent. It has around 70 to 90% humidity, depends on the day. Around 21 to 25 degrees of Celsius. It doesn't really get much colder, not much hotter than that. And it's not actually under a grow light. I will show where I keep it. It is away from the light. It was closer to the light, and when she was closer to the light, the leaves got very small. These small leaves are when she was close to the light, and now when she's far away from the light, she makes these beautiful big leaves. And I didn't notice that light affects the flowering so much. I really think that it's the maybe day length, maybe the temperatures, and obviously water in my case. I think I would not want to expose her to very high light again. I just prefer this look, especially if it's not going to affect the flowers that much. I would much rather look at beautiful leaves all year round than to expose her to high light, trying to get flowers out of her. I don't think she blooms that frequently either. I think this is really like a winter bloomer. And the flowers are very beautiful. You can see here, I will actually include some B-roll because you cannot really see here. I'm going to break the branch, I know it. And that is not a full peduncle of flowers, unfortunately. 8 peduncles on this plant. She also lost a couple peduncles, but these are filled with buds. First of all, she tried to bloom many times, but this last time, I think 6 peduncles, buds started to grow on them. And they got to various stages. I was very excited to see them grow on so many, and then they started to drop peduncle by peduncle. The peduncle stayed, the buds dropped, and only 2 were left, but that was fine because this one, you know, both of them were full at the end of the branches here as well. And they started to get pretty big, and it looked like they're gonna open anytime soon, and then they started to drop. These were dropping periodically, couple of buds per day, but on this other branch, they were not dropping. They were pretty steady, but one day they just all dropped on the other branch, and what remained on this one remained. So this is actually the one that bloomed, which I had zero faith in. And the issue, I think what happened is I didn't water her enough. When she wants to bloom, it seems to me she wants a lot more water. And I mean a lot more. Typically, I water this every 3 to 4 weeks. I fill the reservoir and I leave it. And this time I filled it out on, let's say, Saturday, and by Friday it was bone dry already, and that's when the buds started to drop. So quite a lot of water, and I think the only way to do this is in a, well, draining mix to provide enough water. My friend Farah also told me that One lady in Sweden was able to get this plant to bloom by showering it daily. I have not tried that, but I think maybe from now on I will spray her with distilled water or something like that, because my tap water is filled with calcium. But another issue, maybe why the flowers blasted, is because I'm using now dehumidifier in my room, so humidity goes lower, and she is in my tent, but I did open my tent quite a lot. I was working with plants in the tent, and because the humidity in the tent will start to drop pretty quickly as soon as you open the door, maybe that's why the buds blasted. I'm not really sure. I think it could be a combination of these things. I think what is left for us is to bloom her again. But it is a lovely plant. The scent, I can't tell you. Right now, it doesn't smell. It smells at night. And these have been open for, I think, 4 days now. The flowers should last about 5 days or something like that. The scent reminds me a bit of mint and something herbal. No one in my family agrees. They don't smell that. They know it's a familiar scent and it's maybe spicy, but they don't really know what it is. The flower, I think, is very beautiful. I'm very happy that she bloomed. I think this plant is definitely not a beginner Hoya. She's very beautiful. The leaves are very beautiful, but I think she's quite difficult. I didn't have many issues with it, and I find her to be quite resilient even to pests. While other plants had mites, she didn't. So I'd say she's quite resilient, but at the same time, I also know that I've been quite lucky because I didn't experiment with her a lot. And I think it's just like a lot of coincidences that, you know, produced this plant. If you want an interesting Hoya, I think this is the one. It's really, really gorgeous. The leaves are quite different. Even though they're just green, everyone who comes and who's not into Hoyas, everyone who sees this plant immediately says that she is beautiful. She is just such a beautiful plant, such a nice specimen, I think, this particular one. So, you know, I will accept an award for growing nice Hoya medinillifolia. I don't think it's common to bloom her either. I don't see many photos shared on the internet of this plant in bloom. I'm not saying obviously I'm not the only one. I think a lot of people have bloomed this plant. It's just that when you look on Instagram, a lot of the photos are from Southeast Asia. I think it's much easier to get her to bloom there in high humidity. I think for us in homes, this is not the easiest one. Not impossible. Maybe this is a candidate for the cabinets, but I would be wary because cabinets, in my experience, can get a bit too hot. So I think something like a grow tent would be actually a potentially better choice for this, or if you just have a naturally humid home. I think that is all when it comes to my experience growing this plant. I don't think this is the most difficult Hoya. I do think she's one of the most beautiful Hoyas. She's definitely one of my favorites. I just can't get over how beautiful these leaves look from the underside. Like, look what I'm looking. How gorgeous. It's so pretty. Can't get over it. Okay, I think it's time for me to end the video. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think about Hoya medinillifolia. Do you think you're brave enough to get it? Or were you brave in the past and you have gotten one? And how is it doing? Let me know. I would like to know some of your experience growing this plant. And that is it. She's so pretty. Have a lovely day, and I will see you soon in the next Hoya video. I would like to take some time to thank my patrons for all of their incredible support. A massive shout out to my $5 patrons, my 3 anonymous patrons, Alex von Siebenthal, Amber Clear, Anne Margaret Moen, Angela Bernard, Angela Parrish, Anne C, Betsy, Bougie Panda, Brett Noble, Catherine Molina, Christy Claire Cola, Colleen Coyle Levi, Daniela, Danube Daniels, Daria Kaminska, Diane Sikorsky, Dipanjali Rao, Erin Keenan, Farah, Gina Kaise, Go Green Tropical, Heather Uppingham, Hoji Scott, Hoya Heather, Jamie Arsenaut, Yana Griffin, Jessica Chio, Yavan Denot, Kara, Catherine B, Casey Gross, Callie Cook, Callie Gallagher, Kelso, Kiwi Mochi, Christy Ehrlich, Leplan de Step, Lisa Mary MPLS, Lori J Revert, Mandy Milliken, Marcel Harmer, Selena Novosatsky, Maria West, Mars B, Marty Miller, Mary Rose, Melissa Walker, Michael Curley, Michelle Heron, Nicole Ferranti, Mirka Grun Roos, Moa Edmond, Nelly Yang, Niha Basu, Neely Spicer, Nicole Moreau, Nicole and Caleb of Schlieve Tropicals, Nina Nguyen, Nita May, Macy PJ Plan Druid, Rachel Peterson, Robin L. Jennings, Robin Rue, Salome Adal, Sandra Cornelius, Sherry Kumar, Stephanie H2O, Tessa Martins, Tia B, TJW, Trista Bailey, Tristan Thomas, Wendy Foreman, Wendy Rossman, Xenia Green, Youth of the Walamut, Zordarama, and Zlokov Nipani. Big thank you to my $3 patrons: Andy H, Angelina Farnan, Brenda Little, Cologne, Constance, Catherine Parsons, Lindsay Ann, Lisa Halling, Nella, Nerdy Kathy, Syke, Sarah, Ringlo, and Tangwat and Asria Cool. And thank you to my $1 patrons: one anonymous patron, Alice Borland, Brandon Pacheco, Kari, Christina Greengrass, Kutro Helvetica, Deli Heredia, EDW, Amelia Bronson, Jonna Pearson, Jolie Sullivan, Kayla Vavra, Kelly Ash, Chris Perez, Lauren M, Lori Ann Supermanium, Luzman Fernandez, Neely Spicer, Olivia Chun Muller, and Tracy the Eyepuller.